Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome here to the launch pad and our live coverage of the final flight of Delta 4 Heavy. If it's your first time here, welcome. My name's Zach. I'm the founder and host here at the launch pad, and here at TLP, it's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow because we believe that space is better together, and we're glad to have you joining us here live. If you haven't yet, take a moment, let us know in the chat where you're watching from, and at the same time, hit that share button and invite people to join us. As I said, we are counting down to the 16th and final mission of the Delta 4 Heavy rocket, but even more importantly, closing out a 60 years of history of flying a variation of the Delta rocket. This is the final variant to fly, and it is a somber and bittersweet moment to see this era of rocketry come to an end, but it means a new era is beginning with Vulcan and so many other vehicles, and we're excited for that new future. But lots of people just tuning in from all over the world. We got Jason in Cornwall, UK. We got Timothy in Montgomery, Alabama. I see Helen in the UK. Jeremy's in Pennsylvania. We got Ben in Austin, Texas. I see Poland, Michigan, Georgia, Arizona, Birmingham, London. It's great to have you all joining us here. Take a moment, let us know in the chat. We are expecting ULA to go live here in just a moment as we count down to the launch of NROL-70. Not much to talk about today's payload, as it is, of course, a classified mission for the National Reconnaissance Office, but the big topic today is this final flight. Our TLP rocket chaser Joe and team are out across the Space Coast ready for today's mission. They've been monitoring the weather, as you can see below me. Right now, everything is green across the board. A couple of hours ago, we were red across the board, but it looks like ULA, with a couple delays in that 4-hour window, have been able to find a clear patch of weather and are progressing to a liftoff time here today. They are currently targeting 2:45 p.m. Eastern Time, which that's what our countdown clock in the top right corner of your screen is pointing to. Now, officially, ULA is sitting at T-minus 4 minutes and holding. This is very much like SLS, where we actually have two countdown clocks, L minus, T minus. L minus is very much a real-world time, which is in 45 minutes, come back, you'll see a launch. T-minus can hold at various points, and it's more of an operational countdown, and that's where you see that they can stop for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or they can stop there as long as they need to be able to progress through a countdown. Now, before we dive into everything we do know about the rocket today and listen into ULA Mission Control, if you haven't yet, take a moment, engage that subscribe button so you never miss another live launch coverage. Here at the launch pad, it's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow, as we believe that space is better together, and we would love to have you join us back here for future live coverage of ULA's vehicles and other rockets around the world, as well as exclusive one-on-one interviews, factory tours, and more. It is a special launch, so we have released a limited edition collection of Farewell Delta 4 Heavy commemorative gear. We'll drop a link for that in the chat if you want to pick up one of those items. They're only going to be available for a very limited time, so make sure you grab one of those. Global shipping is available. We've got a women's cuts, we've got hoodies, a blanket, a flag, so lots of options. Definitely check those out. We also have some of our regular Delta 4 Heavy collection that you can pick up at the same time, and some brand new holographic and non-holographic stickers, so definitely check that out. Also, if you'd like to help support what we do, you can hit that join button by 99 cents a month. Changes your name to green if you're watching on YouTube and gets you that awesome TLP helmet next to your name. But even just liking, sharing, and watching is a huge way of supporting us, and we're glad to have you here. Now that we got the YouTube stuff out of the way, ULA is getting ready to begin their live coverage, and when they do, we're going to listen into Mission Control as they know what's going on, and I'll bring you commentary updates throughout the count as we get those, as well as they play through some different videos and stuff commemorating today's flight. We are at T-minus 29 minutes, 17 seconds and counting till the final flight of Delta 4 Heavy from the Space Coast in Florida, from Launch Complex Space Launch Complex 37B at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. As ULA gets underway, if you guys have questions, you can begin sending those in the chat by tagging me at the launch pad, and I'll work on coming back and answering those live as we continue. Mohammed, thanks so much for becoming a Lunar Explorer. We appreciate your support. But make sure when you're sending in those questions, you're tagging us at the Launchpad, and we will work on answering those live. Let's listen in to ULA Mission Control.
I'm Andrea Lenhop. I'm a systems engineering leader at ULA and your host for today's live broadcast of the final Delta Heavy carrying NROL-70 for the National Reconnaissance Office. I'm here at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida, where liftoff is currently scheduled for 2:45 p.m. Eastern. In addition to watching our webcast, you can also follow live mission progress at ulalaunch.com. The count is currently in a planned hold. We have 2 planned holds in our launch count, which give our team time to resolve any issues prior to entering the terminal count. At this time, the team is not working any issues and we're proceeding towards an on-time liftoff. Live mission coverage will continue through payload fairing jettison, which occurs approximately 6.5 minutes after liftoff. To tell us more about today's mission customer, let's go to ULA's Ben Chilton over at the Friends and Family Viewing Area on the NASA Causeway.
Thanks, Andrea. I'm Ben Chilton, an ordnance engineer at ULA, and I'm joining you from the NASA Causeway, just a few miles south of Space Launch Complex 37. Today's launch is for the National Reconnaissance Office, or NRO. The NRO is the leader in developing, acquiring, launching, and operating the nation's intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance satellites to secure and expand America's advantage in space. The NROL-70 mission will strengthen the NRO's ability to provide a wide range of timely intelligence information to national decision makers, warfighters, and intelligence analysts to protect the nation's vital interests and support humanitarian efforts worldwide. Back to you, Andrea.
This is the 16th and final flight of the Delta IV Heavy rocket and ULA's 160th launch. Here's more about this heavy lift rocket.
And if you're just joining us, welcome here to the launch pad. We are at T-minus 26 minutes, 35 seconds and counting till launch of the final Delta IV Heavy rocket. ULA playing through a beautiful video with some beautiful copywritten music, talking through a bit of the Delta IV Heavy vehicle. And I'll bring it up here on the screen. On the bottom, that is where you have your RS-68A engines. You have 3 center cores of the vehicle. Previously, ULA did fly a Delta IV medium variant, which only had the 1 center core for it. You then have your interstage, as well as then your Centaur second stage, and your payload fairing, and that is where today's classified mission is in store. Now, the learns that they came from Delta IV Heavy and the Atlas program are ultimately what has helped design and influence the Vulcan Centaur program, which ULA flew the demo flight of just a number of months ago, and are getting ready for their second Vulcan flight once the retirement of Delta IV Heavy is complete. This pad exclusively launched these Delta rockets. This is Slick 37-B at Cape Canaveral. So the future of the pad is currently something that's not fully known publicly, whether it'll be retrofitted to a Vulcan pad or whether we'll see ULA release their lease of it and possibly it be positioned into being providing for another launch provider. We'll have to wait and see. But after 20 years and 16 missions, those missions spread across from both the West Coast and East Coast. Some launched from Vandenberg Space Force Base in California, and the rest from here at Cape Canaveral. On the TLP's commemorative tee, on the back of the shirt, we actually have all of the missions that were completed and those that were classified or not. Delta IV Heavy was most known for successfully launching the first Orion space capsule back in 2014 in preparation for the Artemis program. This vehicle was able to put Orion on a pre-flight trajectory to do a test of the re-entry heat shield of the Orion spacecraft. Now, as we get to T-minus 24 minutes, 34 seconds and counting, we are still at that T-minus 4-minute mark. So when the countdown clock on the top left of their screen matches ours, right around there is when we expect clocks to sync and we will resume count. That is as the teams are monitoring the weather conditions. We do have a 4-hour launch window that they can fly in here today. They are now about an hour into that window, so they can hold this T-minus 4-hour mark for quite a while if they need to make a launch attempt here. You can see the cloud conditions in the region. It is not the best day for flying. The cold front did pass through, and we did have quite a bit of rain pass through the region over the last couple of hours. We were hearing from our rocket chaser, Joe, had our remote cameras being set up out there bright and early this morning for sunrise, and the building being retracted away from the vehicle. It's they've had all the weather conditions you expect on the Space Coast, but we're hoping that it clears out. We do have an update from the launch weather officer, Mark Berger. He reports the current and forecasted conditions are close to the threshold of an acceptable criteria for the launch of Delta IV Heavy for NROL-70. The team is continuing to monitor the wind conditions that are down on the region. They will make a determination of that closer to the T0. A series of weather balloons have been launched throughout this countdown by the Range Weather Station to collect the measurements of the wind speeds and directions to see if conditions aloft violate the controllability or structural loads that the rocket will experience during descent. That balloon data was all then transmitted to ULA's engineer team in Denver, Colorado. They select a steering profile that minimizes the launch vehicle's response to wind conditions. This is all being real-time monitored to see what the best conditions we can get for today's weather conditions, and that is why we've had some of these delays, and they're continuing to monitor those upper-level winds for today's flight. And if you have questions, you keep sending those in the chat by taking us at the launch pad, and we'll work on answering those live by taking us at the launch pad. We'll check if the mic is going on here. Bear with me one moment. I think let me know in the chat if you guys can hear me all right. Is it coming through clearly or no? Give it a brief moment and we'll work on updating. Stay with us as we continue to count down to launch. Well, we're going to give this microphone a try. We'll try one of our backups there. Let me know in the chat if you can hear me a bit better there now. Give me a 5x5 there if that is helping. Sorry about those mic issues. Gotta love technology. We can launch to space, but, you know, a good old microphone in a stable environment sometimes decides to just run by itself. People say much better. Yeah, it's good. Awesome. Thank you guys for that. Sorry for the delay catching some of your guys' chats there. A little bit of a YouTube lag. T-minus 20 minutes, 42 seconds, and counting till launch of the final Delta IV Heavy. I'll repeat a little bit of what I was saying just in case it wasn't coming through super clear. We did have an update from the launch weather officer, Mark Berger. He reports current and forecast conditions are close to the threshold. They're continuing to monitor if the winds will be an issue at the current targeted T0, which is 2:45 p.m. Eastern Time or 6:45 p.m. UTC. They're monitoring via weather balloons and other data collection sources down across the Cape in preparation and will make a decision. They're also transmitting all of this data to Denver, Colorado, where ULA has their engineer team, and they are adjusting the steering profile of Delta IV Heavy and selecting one to make sure Delta has the best possible flight. So we are keeping an eye on that, and we'll be doing so. We have that radar down below us. This is coming in from the Space Force, and we'll be continuing to monitor that as we go through the countdown here this afternoon to see what ultimately the best weather conditions are. We're also monitoring, as you can see on the screen there, the radar conditions at the T0 verse right now. So this is the current radar at the targeted T0 time. That's a lot of me talking. We want to answer your guys' comments and questions. You can send those in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad. We'll start right off the bat with Pop Trepica. Do we know anything about the payload? No, it is a classified mission for the National Reconnaissance Office. We do sometimes, after the launch, find out a little bit about what was on board or a satellite name from them, but this is a satellite going into a geosynchronous orbit for the National Reconnaissance Office. So we don't know much more than that. Basically, it's a spy satellite, and they don't want us to know about it. But you can't exactly hide a really massive rocket launching from the Space Coast, so they at least let us know that it is flying and that that's happening. So that is what is flying. What we don't know is flying today, but what we know is flying. Another update coming in from ULA's launch control at T-minus 4 minutes and holding. They have 15 minutes remaining in this pre-planned hold. The combined launch teams at Cape Canaveral are monitoring systems of Delta IV Heavy, the pad equipment, and downrange assets, and weather remains right on the limits of launch. Coming up shortly, they will conduct a sequence of readiness polls, which will begin to ensure every member of the team is officially go, and we will listen in for that call and those polls when that begins. That's expected to begin here in just the next couple of minutes, most likely following this last video here. If you guys have questions, you can keep sending those in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad. I saw some others coming in there, so I'm going to try to catch up on a few of those. Jeremy Frey, what time is liftoff? 2:45 p.m. Eastern, 6:45 p.m. UTC. Matthew saying, I've seen many launches. I've never seen one with 3 rockets. What's going on with this design? It is something that is more rare. Between Delta IV Heavy and Falcon Heavy, we don't see many 3 core vehicles. We normally see a center core and then some side boosters that are much smaller. These 3 center boosters are the exact same core stage, the exact same engines on the bottom. They are just affixed together because the payloads they carry are incredibly heavy, and because of that, they need to have more thrust. So instead of building a bigger rocket, they do 3. They'll drop the side boosters away, the center core will continue, then it'll drop away, and then you'll go to the second stage, which will finalize its placement before its deployment, similar to Falcon Heavy. Delta IV Heavy is an entirely expendable vehicle. It's been flying for 20 years, so none of it is recoverable. Due to this being a classified mission, also, we will not have any views of the payload following second stage separation and fairing deployment. So ULA will be wrapping their coverage there, but we'll see what they do with it. On your screen, you can see some videos from past flights, which the Delta IV Heavy is a special rocket, as it literally lights itself on fire before it flies, as part of the burn-off sequence to make sure there is no other fuels or leaks around the vehicle where the gas could have collected. So it ignites, it chars the outside of itself, and then it flies. Because of TLP, I was lucky enough to be back down there last summer to see the second last flight of Delta IV Heavy. Tried to make it down for this one, but just didn't work out. And it was truly incredible to get to see this fly from just over 2 miles away on the Space Force base. A big thank you again to the Space Force and ULA for working with our teams and the National Reconnaissance Office to have us down on site then. We have our rocket chaser Joe on site today. We only get that access thanks to them, and we appreciate it. So make sure you stay tuned to our social media and our TLP Discord to see some incredible photos from Joe and our other rocket chasers who are scattered around the Space Coast. And stay tuned on the shop as we'll be releasing some farewell Delta IV Heavy prints and posters on there as well that are global shipping. At T-minus 15 minutes, 20 seconds, and counting, this launch, ULA saying further is a long-standing relationship between ULA and the SSC, or the Space Systems Command, part of the Space Forces company, which is the acquisition of excellence in acquiring and developing military space systems. And that's what they're talking a little bit about in this video with some beautiful copyrighted music, is this partnership between these two companies, which will continue going forward using the Vulcan Centaur vehicle, which we already saw the first test flight of previously. Dark Cluster, what is the planned trajectory for the launch of Delta IV Heavy? The launch today is heading out on a mostly easternly trajectory. So if you are anywhere on the eastern coast of Florida, you will be able to see today's flight. If you are on the very eastern side of Tampa or anywhere in central Florida, you'll also be able to see today's flight, depending on your weather conditions. That's a really big thing. If you happen to be in the northern Bahamian Islands as well, you may be able to see today's flight. But this launch is going in a straight equatorial, basically launch straight east from the pad, is at least what they're telling us. We'll obviously see where the rocket goes, but the second stage and where it deploys, ultimately that information we do not get. But it is something, if you, depending on your weather conditions, head outside, you might get to see a little bit of an orange glow. And if you do capture photos or videos from today's launch, make sure you tag us on social, either at the Launchpad Network on Facebook and Instagram, or at TLPN_official on X. Brian V, is there any other rockets that light themselves on fire before liftoff? Not in the dramatics of Delta IV Heavy. There's some China ones that have a little bit of a flame around the bottom, but it's more of an orange cloud of gas that you wouldn't want to breathe, not necessarily the beautiful fire that we see come from Delta IV Heavy. We are listening into the mission control nets, expecting that go, no go poll to begin momentarily. Once we do,
For this launch, we are also remembering an NRO teammate.
When that begins, I will be quiet and we'll listen in to that go, no go poll. We're expecting that in the next few minutes from now, as ULA is still targeting 2:45 p.m. Eastern Time. If you haven't yet, take a moment, share out the stream, invite people to join us as we continue to count down to launch of the final Delta IV Heavy. Popceptica, what rockets do ULA use to replace Delta IV and Delta IV Heavy? So the only rocket ULA will be flying after this. They have about 20 Atlas Vs remaining, then it will be retiring, and then it will be left solely with Vulcan. If you guys have questions, you can keep sending those in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad, and we will work on answering those live. While we continue through the count, we are expecting that go, no go to begin here shortly.
Honor just prior to the L7 pole.
And here it goes.
Roger.
After liftoff, the Delta IV Heavy will head east from Space Launch Complex 37. Here's a look at today's ascent.
So I'm going to play through another video here showing a bit of the trajectory and ascent timeline, and we are waiting for that go, no go polling to begin. This is the 389th Delta rocket to fly since 1960, the 294th to fly from Cape Canaveral. It is one of the leading rockets in the world, only really succeeded by Falcon, by Soyuz, and a few of the Chinese rockets for a class of rocket. There's been many variations, Delta II, Delta IV, Delta IV Heavy, and then some earlier versions as well, but really truly an end of an era here through the final flight of Delta IV Heavy. Bryant, the Saturn V, had the dramatic fire below, but it got sucked into the flame trench. It did. It was definitely a quite an interesting scene watching Saturn V's fly. FML Laser is asking, are any Deltas going to the museums? This is something many have asked the CEO, Tori Bruno of ULA, if there's any way to put a Delta IV Heavy in flight, and they have flown them all. This is the last one that they built, so unfortunately there will not be any true, real Delta IV Heavy rockets on display. There is, though, a Delta II on display at Kennedy Space Center's visitor complex in the Rocket Garden, so you can go have a little bit of an idea and see some of the heritage of the Delta vehicle. Catching up on your guys' questions, you can keep sending those in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad. We'll work on answering those live while we await the go, no go poll from ULA Mission Control as they continue to monitor the weather. If you're just joining us, 2 countdown clocks on your screen. The top right, that's the real world countdown time to the current targeted T0. The top left, that's the operational countdown. T-minus, we are at T-minus 4 minutes and holding.
As we can continue the countdown to launch, let's head over to Ben Chilton on the NASA Causeway.
Of ULA friends and family excited to witness the last liftoff of this magnificent rocket. I'm approximately 3 miles from Slick 37, and when we reach T0, it will take about 15 seconds for the sound to reach us, though we'll already have seen Delta lift off the pad. From where I'm standing, it's a little windy at the moment, but I'll pass it off to Space Launch Delta 45 Weather Officer Arlena Moses for today's weather forecast.
Thanks, Ben. As you mentioned, it is a little breezy out there this afternoon, and that's going to be our main weather watch item for our launch today. If you were out earlier, you did notice that we had some showers kind of pushed through about an hour or so ago. Those are well to the south. Don't expect any more showers or concerns with that. So our main concern will be our breezy conditions coming from the northwest, as we see behind kind of the showers in front that pushed through earlier. Currently across the area, we're seeing gusts into the 20s. And if we look at the forecast going forward to our current T0 today, we are looking at a probability of seeing weather violations of 70%, with our main concern being those ground winds, as we can see here with some of our gusts across the area. But we are looking at sustained winds ticking up just a bit here over the next few minutes, kind of coming up into that 20 to 30 knot range. So continuing out of the northwest, temperature is about 72 degrees, and hopefully we'll be able to keep those winds down just enough that we'll be able to see the launch of our Delta IV Heavy this afternoon.
And if you're just joining us, we just had an update from Inside Launch Control, a reminder from the launch conductor, Scott Barney, that if at any point we have a weather constraint observed after L-7 minutes in their flight readiness poll, at that point a team member will need to call hold on the count, address the communication loops. But let's listen in for that go, no-go poll.
Status check for all Delta vehicle systems, ground systems, spacecraft, and the U.S. Space Force Eastern Range. The vehicle system readiness poll includes electrical systems, hydraulics, pneumatics, propulsion systems, and flight control, and propellants. Let's listen in as Scott Barney performs the final polling.
-7 minutes.
Status check to proceed with terminal count. First stage systems, propulsion.
Go.
Hydraulics.
Go.
Locks.
Go.
LH2.
Go.
Second stage system, locks.
Go.
LH2.
Go.
Electrical systems, airborne.
Go.
Ground.
Go.
Facility.
Go.
RFFTS.
Go.
Flight control.
Go.
COM.
Go.
GCQ.
Go.
Operation support.
Go.
Pneumatics.
Go.
Umbilicals.
Go.
HAZGAS.
Go.
ECS.
Go.
Radar monitor.
Go.
Mechanical engineering.
Go.
Quality.
Go.
Op safety manager.
Go.
UA safety officer.
Go.
Vehicle system engineer.
Go.
Anomaly chief.
Go.
Range coordinator.
Clear to proceed.
Launch director.
Launch vehicle is ready to launch.
Mission director.
You have permission to launch.
Proceeding with the count. ALC. Verify T0 is set for 18:45:000.
Verified.
MEQ. Establish swing arm lock pins. Pull.
Active.
And if you were just joining us, you heard there on the count and saw it on your screen, we have had a go for launch from the entire flight team across the board. The first stage is go, the second stage, electrical systems, payload, and even the weather has given a go for that targeted liftoff time of 2:45 p.m. Eastern, or just 5 minutes, 25 seconds from now. We're going to listen in to Mission Control for the updates as we go through the final bit of the terminal count here. If you haven't yet, take a moment, share out the stream, invite people to join us as they watch history. You can keep sending in those comments and questions in the chat. As always, here at the launch pad in those final minutes of the counts, we do one last final check with you guys in the chat. So let's see that go, no go from you if you think they're ready to fly here today. And as we tune in to Mission Control for the final 5 minutes of the countdown of launch, to the entire UL team, congratulations, Godspeed Delta IV Heavy, and let's watch the final Delta IV Heavy launch into history.
This is Delta Mission Control at T-minus 4 minutes and holding. We anticipate releasing the hold in just a few moments.
T-minus 4 minutes and counting.
Hold, hold, hold. This is flight control. We have a CCLS red line fault at T-minus 3 minutes and 58 seconds.
LC switch not ready. All personnel go to recycle steps for operation 90.
And you just heard there on the nets, we've got into the clock running, and we have had a hold called.
Switch is not ready.
Flight control is ready to set clock to T-minus 4 and holding.
Roger. ALC, reset countdown clock to T-minus 4 minutes and holding.
Roger.
They are going to reset the clock back to that T-minus 4 minute hold mark.
Flight control SS BAP inactive and SCS in pre-flight mode.
Roger. And prop lead, evaluate locks, recycle, and report if ready to recycle.
Roger. Red line that we've...
OSM, place the SRM ignition switch to disable position.
SRM ignition disabled.
ALC, count. Disregard.
LC countdown clock has been reset to T-minus 4 and holding.
Roger. For step 90, all stations recycle systems back, T-minus 4 holding in configuration. Recycle occurred at T-minus 3 minutes, 58 seconds. Report status at completion.
If you're just joining us, you're hearing there the live mission control nets, a hold called just 2 minutes after clocks had resumed. They have recycled back to T-minus 4 minutes and holding. We do have over 2.5 hours remaining in today's launch window, so they will determine, it sounds like they already know exactly what the hold was. It was a red line on one of the requirements that they need. We're not too sure what the detail was there, but they will evaluate that, determine if they need to top up the propellant, rectify the issue, and then pick a new T0.
Box 1.
Go.
CBC locks conditioning active.
Roger.
LC ECS.
Go.
ECS set point stable.
Roger.
LC fuel 2.
Go.
Second stage LH2 conditioning active.
Roger.
LC SYS.
Go.
GC3 ready.
Roger.
LC has gas.
Go.
Step Foxtrot has gas ready. And as MEQ, should I reinstall lock pins?
Yes, let's install pins.
Roger.
LC AB.
Go.
First substep Papa. Vehicle external.
Roger.
LC Prep 101.
Go.
All systems are stable.
Roger.
LC flight control.
Go flight control.
Step 180, substep Kilo, flight control ready.
Roger.
LC MEQ.
Go.
Substep Oscar, TSM and swing arm systems ready.
Roger.
And substep Alpha, pneumatic pressures stable.
Roger.
Again, if you're just joining us, you're listening into the live mission control nets. So we did have a hold called on the net immediately following them picking up the count at T-minus 4 minutes. We've had confirmation from mission control, though, via the media channels that Delta 4 Heavy is still in a safe configuration. And that they are evaluating the unplanned hold.
Hydraulic system stable. Roger.
This is Delta Mission Control at T-minus 4 minutes and holding. The planned hold has been extended. We will pass on more information as it becomes available.
Detanking.
If you guys have questions, you can send those in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad. We'll work on answering those live. If you haven't yet, take a moment, engage that like button as well, and subscribe so you never miss another.
And just confirm we're in a scrub declaration for a 24-hour turnaround.
Oh, we are hearing scrub.
Roger.
Stand by for confirmation.
GELC.
G.
Verify TISR status per India.
TISR ready.
Roger. All right, team, we've given direction recycle is now complete. We get direction to proceed into detanking.
And there we have confirmation they have scrubbed. They are going for a 24-hour recycle. The earliest next launch opportunity is tomorrow at basically the same time. They are now going to proceed to safing the vehicle, detanking propellant. Delta does...
Team will be, or stand by.
Delta does what Delta
This is
does.
Delta Mission Control. It's confirmed that we will not continue with the NROL-70 launch activities today. We have a 24-hour recycle. Our next launch attempt will be tomorrow at 1:37 p.m. Eastern. For up-to-date information, please visit ulalaunch.com. I'm Andrea Linhoff.
Well, as they wrap up that coverage there, we'll take a quick look at the weather conditions again. We'll answer a few more of your guys' comments and questions. If you haven't yet, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We will do this all again tomorrow. Once we have an updated T0, we will resume our countdown to launch tracker as well. If you're watching on the stream that says live, the final Delta IV Heavy NROL-70 launch, this stream will be ending. If you're on the countdown launch coverage stream, that stream will stay live, so you can keep that up to get the latest updates as we continue through the count. Teams will monitor the conditions of the weather and the vehicle to see if tomorrow is an option. If for any reason they cannot launch tomorrow on a 24-hour recycle, we will have to see a full 96-hour recycle from today for the next launch opportunity. So we will stay tuned for those updates. The weather conditions cleared, but unfortunately something on the vehicle is just not ready, and they are going to have to try this again tomorrow. If it was your first time here, though, welcome here at the launch pad. It's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow, because we believe that space is better together, and we would love to invite you to join us back here tomorrow for the final flight of Delta IV Heavy. While we have a little bit of extra time, head on over to the shop, pick up your Delta IV Heavy repeat tee or our limited edition Mission Complete commemorative tee. Global shipping's available. Those will only be available for a couple of weeks following a successful flight, so make sure you grab that and stay tuned for some brand new limited edition prints from our crew, our limited run prints from our crew of the pictures captured today of Delta IV Heavy. We expect that they will most likely put the building back over Delta IV Heavy to safe it overnight, and then we get to run through all of this again tomorrow. But stay tuned to our social media, our Discord, and the 24/7 countdown stream for the latest updates as we continue to count down to the final launch of Delta IV Heavy from Slick 37-B at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. But from behalf of the entire TLP crew and from our TLP Canada studio, we will see you tomorrow for that next flight, and we will see you then, because space is better together. Bye-bye.